pleasure for me to introduce our guest, wonderful guest. You've already known Sanna Marin, former Prime Minister of Finland. We have Francine Katsoudas from Cisco, Barnett, Mastercard, and Kasia, Kieli, Warner Bros. Discovery TV and Poland. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. Sanna, if I may say that, you've already commented on what just happened in Slovakia, so I don't want to get back to this issue. We are going to talk about the leadership nowadays. And I was mentioning first Polish king, the problem we had with our Polish kings for at least first 200 years, they didn't write a lot. Actually, they didn't write at all. So I don't have any quotes from first Polish kings, so I prepared some quotes from great leaders from the 20th century. And one of the best of them, most popular, was General de Gaulle. And he said once, but these were different times without social media, so it was a different story. But he said, sometimes in politics, it's necessary to betray your country or to betray your voters, your electorate. I would prefer, said de Gaulle, to betray my voters. I give you just one example. I don't want to go too deep into Polish politics, but in the year 2012, then Polish government decided to change Polish pension system. We are getting older, you are living longer, we don't have enough babies, we have to do something about it. So they raised retirement age from 60 for women to 67. They didn't explain it good enough. People were angry about it. They lost the election. And since 2012, because of this mistake of preparing the reform, we don't have any kind of conversation about changing our pension system. Since 2012, before every election in Poland, all the politicians are asked, are we going to raise the retirement age? No, 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 we are not going to do it. And we have to do something about it. But we are not going to talk about it because that would be good for the country and bad for the voters. So how to find a balance when you are a politician, when you are a prime minister, if you have to choose between, quoting de Gaulle, betraying the country or betraying the voters? How you should do it?
Well, I think if you do the necessary reforms, you will benefit both your country and your voters. But of course, we live in democracy, so people have always right to vote and change the leadership. And I think that's a good thing, that people have that right and that power. When you talk about pension systems, I think every country in Europe is tackling the same thing. So I know exactly what you talk of. And also in Finland, we have had a lot of reforms in our pension system and also a lot of discussion. And if I know as a former politician something, you will lose election going to talk about pension systems, because that's an angry voter group if you do it the wrong way, if you don't explain it, if you don't tell what is needed and why and how and in what stage, then I bet you will lose the vote. And this is a typical discussion all across Europe, different countries, in different decades. It's no news.
Francine, it's not a question about politics, about a company. Sometimes you have to be ready for difficult, tough decisions. What is good for the company? Different example. We have new CEO of Polish Post Office. And he said, they hire thousands of people, of course, in the post office. It's a huge company. I would like to raise your salaries, but if I would raise your salaries, we would go bankrupt. So to keep the company alive, I'm sorry, I can't be so nice to you as I would like to be. So when you're a leader in a company, how to find a balance between something similar, then you have to find a balance in politics to keep the company alive and to keep your employers happy?
It's so interesting. When I look back on what I would consider a hard decision, I typically look back and say the decision wasn't hard, but the how to get there is the hard part. And I think for all of us, when we're clear on the decision that we're trying to make and what our purpose or our North Star is, I think it guides us. And I think one of the mistakes that we make from a business perspective is sometimes I think we believe we have to come with the answer. And I always find that we're so much better when we engage in the process of how do we get to that answer. And then be clear with people when the decision is going to be made. I typically find that faster is always better. and then the why behind the decision that you make and how you're going to compensate. I think transformation is hard. It really is. And so when leaders are having to make these decisions around the short term and the long term, engaging your people, creating a level of safety and trust, and letting them know how and when the decision is going to be made, I think it helps a ton.
And I have next question for all of you, because I think that would be fascinating for us, who are, most of us probably are employers, to understand how the leadership works. Great general of the American Army during the Second World War, George Patton. And he sometimes he was quite a crazy leader, but he was extremely successful. And he said, don't tell people how to do things, tell them what needs to be done, and let them surprise you with the results. That's the question to Kasia, because that's so complicated. In a large organization, the success of a leader is success of hundreds, thousands of people. And you just can't tell everyone how to do things. You just show them where we are going, what we should achieve, and let them find their way to do it. How to be a leader, to be successful in inspiring people, not telling them exactly how to do things.
Well, I think it's a great quote to start with. I would say that when I think about the leadership, and if you want to put it in just few words, I think the key aspects of leadership is clarity is number one. Clarity, be clear, let people know what's the direction of travel. So clarity is number one. Number two, what's really required from the leader is energy. That's another thing. Lack of energy, sucking away energy from your team is not a good, it's not a good thing. So it's energy. The third thing, actually, is belief. And I think belief is really important. Belief from the leader, belief from the teams, belief overall in what you're doing, in the purpose and where you're going. And the fourth one is empowerment. And once you master those, once you pull that together, I think that that's really in essence where leadership stands. That's the essence of the leadership. Obviously, there's a lot of different things and a lot of different ways, because you have to bring the people, you have to meet the people where they are, in a sense, because that's going to motivate them and that's going to bring them on board with you. But I think those four, for me, are key.
Mark, how would you answer that question?
Well, very similarly, actually. When I started in leadership roles, I thought it was all about the what, and the more I've gone on, I've realized it's all about the how. And Sanna said something in the earlier session about realizing that politics was all about people. Well, leadership is all about people. And another word for the how is the culture. Culture is a pretty amorphous thing in an organization, but every organization has one. Might be a bad one, might be a good one, but everybody has one. And I think the really important thing about the culture, I mean, we have one, we call it the Mastercard way. Don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with it. But the really important thing is it can just be a piece of paper. And I've worked in a lot of organizations where it's a piece of paper. Unless you breathe some life into that, we at Mastercard make it part of our annual appraisal process. The how is just as important as the what, and that all comes back to trying to make sure we all live the culture, especially the leaders, but right through the organization.
Well, I just want to raise a question. Do leaders really lead? You mentioned the pension system reforms. I think we have to also look at leadership in a position. Do leaders know what the questions should be asked? Because for that question, nowadays, we are also seeing a world with more automation, more new upcoming technologies. So should we really view our societies and our world from the lens of the old world? Or should we ask new questions? What will happen to ordinary people, ordinary workers, for example, when automation will reduce the line of work that people have used to do? So I think it's also a question about leadership. Are leaders the ones that lead, that have the view and the vision for the future, and has the courage to really change the way we think and the way we view our structures or systems that we have built? I don't think so. I don't think that we're seeing that kind of leadership that really like looking forward, seeing what is happening, what it will be the pace in Europe right now. We are fear and worry that we are too used to doing things the way we have done it for the past decades. And I think we should really like take a big leap ahead and see what is already happening in the world.
Francine, because probably every political leader on the very first day of her or his job, and every leader in a company would say on the very first day, I'm going to listen to you. I'm not going to tell you how to do things. I'm going to listen to you. Trust me. You can come to my office every day, every morning, telling me what's wrong in our company. I will try to improve it. But how to keep the dream alive for a longer period of time?
Well, the first thing I would say is there's been a significant shift in the belief around leadership. So in the past, an organization was there to serve the leader. And I think we understand that that is a recipe for failure in many cases, because what you want is you want the leader to be in service of people. And I think there's this critical word that you just mentioned, which is trust. And there has to be trust. And so to say that you're in service of your team, but to have an environment where there isn't trust, I think is a challenge. It's funny, as I travel around the world and visit our employees, I always will ask the question, tell me something that no one else is willing to tell me. And when people answer back with something that usually makes me wince a little bit, I know that there's enough trust there. And so what I would say is I think as leaders, we recognize that when you enable your people, there are business results that come from that, that keep the dream alive, if you will.
Sanna, I want to ask a question about the young leaders, because obviously there was a moment in 2019 when you were the youngest prime minister probably in the world. Barack Obama was 47 when he became the president. Michelle Obama is coming to work. She's already in Poznan right now. But people fighting for the Oval Office right now are over 70, and Bernie Sanders is closer to 80, and this is such a young, vibrant nation. But it's not only the American case, and that's what John Kennedy said once. All the mothers in the United States would love their kids to become presidents, but they don't want them to become politicians in the process. I think it's not a dream of so many young people to become politicians, to become leaders. How to change that? How to inspire young people? Yes, you can be prime minister being 34, and it's a wonderful job. How to inspire people to be political leaders? Convince them, yes, you can do that, being 30, 40. You don't have to wait longer.
Well, I think it begins with passion, the passion to change the world. I haven't met many politicians that have gone into politics for themselves because they want something, they want to benefit something from politics personally. But I met so many people in politics that really wanted to change the world. They had values, they had vision, they had that passion to change the world. And this is something that is maybe lacking in the public conversation. Politicians are mostly viewed and valued through that kind of gaze and eyes that they only want something to benefit themselves, and they are all crooked, and they are all corrupt, or they are all some kind of like evil because they are in politics. But I've met so many people that really want to change the world, and I think there are so many young people out there, a whole new generation, that really feel that passion for big issues like climate change, loss of biodiversity, human rights. They worry about the respect for minorities. They worry about their own livelihood, their friends, their family, things that they really care about. And I think we should boost that passion. We should show them a way that they can really make a difference in those issues, because I think when we talk about politics and our societal matters, democracy, it's all about the things that we want to do in our societies. Why young people don't want to go into politics? I think one of the reasons is that it's so hard. It is so cruciating to be a politician nowadays.
So brutal?
Very, very brutal. Social media, the pace, how you need to work, be constantly available, answer the very private, intimate questions. You will be harassed online. You will be attacked, especially if you are younger women or part of some minority group, people with migrant background, for example. You will be brutally attacked online. There will be a lot of hate speech. There is a lot of misinformation, disinformation. There are whole campaigns against normal, ordinary young people that are not even yet politicians, but are just raising their voices. So it's a very hostile atmosphere where young people want to do a difference in the world. And I think we have to tackle this as a societal issue, as a structural issue, and make sure that we will have all those safety nets also when it comes, for example, online, what is happening there. And if we don't tackle that, we don't get to say to the young people, please go into politics and change the world. We have to make politics and societal the work within our democracies also a safe place for ordinary people to participate. So it's a very multi-layered question. I think we should boost people's passions to change things, and then we have to make sure that it's also a safe place for young people to try to make those things within our societies.
Yeah, absolutely. A quote from a completely different person, Steve Jobs: "Innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower." Right? But it's hard to try to be innovative all of the time. And Warren Buffett said once, when you are coming to a company and you just became a CEO of a huge company, probably you have 4 months to change that. Afterwards, you will believe your secretary, oh, boss, it's a great idea, but you know that we tried it so many times. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. So we have to be very, very passionate over a short period of time at the beginning. And in our business, in television, media, the world is transforming every day. And how to be innovative in this business and to convince other people, we have to change, we have to adapt. What we are doing yesterday was perfect, but tomorrow we have to change that. And we have to be ready for it. Kasia.
Well, I think that change, innovation and change and transformation is not something that you do once or twice. I think it's a constant thing today, and definitely in television, in media, in whatever, in content delivery, let's say. This is true. You cannot just stop and say, okay, I've done something, I changed the structures, this and that, and now I'm good for another 5 years. That just doesn't happen. And I think it has to be a part of the culture of the company to make sure that, people, I often say you need to be comfortable with uncomfortable. And that's the most important thing. Yes, it's not that, we're going to have answers to everything. It is a lot about trying, failing, and getting up very quickly and trying again. And it's about a constant change that needs to be in the organization, in you as a leader, and in making sure that, that you listen. I think that this is one of the most important also leadership skills, is to listen. And ultimately, yes, you need to guide, you need to show the way, but if you don't listen, if you don't meet people in the moment where they are, and you don't know what's going on, you just cannot create that. And it has to be a part of the culture. For us, as you, Piotr, know, we always say it, dream it, own it. So you own your dream.
Mark, how to do that? How to be ready for innovation, transformation every day, not being satisfied with what we achieved yesterday?
Well, let me make two slightly separate points. I'd love to come back on the younger, on the youth thing, which is, I'm lucky enough to be the father of 2 young men in their early 20s, and they're very politically engaged, and I spend a lot of time talking to them about politics and our political model and their friends as well. And very few people are advocating for what is the best economic and political model in the world, which is, liberal democracies and regulated capitalism. They get taught in their schools that European history, British history is largely bad, when there are certainly faults. Nobody has a perfect history, but we should be a little more proud of what we've brought to the world in terms of this freedom, this wealth. And they are great beneficiaries of this, but they don't really understand it because nobody's advocating strongly enough for what is the best model. I mean, somebody was saying, we all know the quote, the end of history, when the Soviet system collapsed and everybody was just going to become a liberal democracy with regulated capitalism. It didn't happen, and I heard a great quote yesterday here, which was, it's the end of history. Which would be very, very sad if we didn't encourage our young people to to come into politics and to engage in the way that, that Sanna was talking about. On the constant change, you know, that's all, again, a part, exactly as we've just heard, it's all a part of the culture of the organisation. You have an agility and openness to change. Actually, having lots of young people in an organisation is also a very good way because they're much less resistant to change than old folks like me.
Francine.
I would say that change is a constant. I do think that we have to help our people navigate through that. I do believe that the cultural element is incredibly important, but people have to believe that there's something better ahead of them. When I think about your question and think about something that we're all grappling with at the moment, which is perhaps the use of AI, and how do we ensure that we step into a new technology being thoughtful about how it can make us better. And I think the key thing for us to do is to really engage our people. And so as an example, something that we're doing right now is we're asking teams around the company to really take the technology and suggest to us how they want to change it. So I think they need to be a part of that. The other thing that I would say, just picking up on where Mark left off, in politics and in business, there is nothing more powerful than role models. And when you have role models like Sanna that show that there are so many different paths and you can do it your own way, you really open up paths to everyone, which I think is so powerful.
I was fascinated, how does it look like when you are inside the government? Because I don't know about Finland, but in Poland we have a rule of first 100 days. And people believe that the government should deliver on first 100 days. But maybe there is something about it, because I can just imagine, on the very first day in the office, you may think, like you said, I want to change the world. I want to change my country for the better. Yes, we can do it. But after 100 days, after a year, after 2 years, you have to argue with your cabinet, with your ministers, with the parliament, with the trade unions, with the opinion polls, and maybe you are not so enthusiastic. So how does it work when you are the prime minister? To keep passion alive, like on the very first day, but to have this passion alive after a year, 2, 3 years?
Well, I was Prime Minister in a few months when COVID hit. So we didn't have those 100 days to do the things that we wanted. But in the end, when we look at our governmental period, even though we faced global pandemic, we faced the war in Ukraine, the energy crisis and all the difficulties, still our government was able to fulfill 98% of our governmental program at the same time. And how to do that? How we did during that very difficult period where our focus was also in these big crises, we did major reforms in education, we did major reforms in social health care, we did major reforms when it comes to climate. For example, we did a law that said that Finland will become climate neutral by the year 2035, so we have the most ambitious climate targets in the world. How we did that? It was through the empowerment of people. I trusted my team. I trusted our ministers. I trusted my cabinet. I trusted the people that I worked with. I, as a prime minister, couldn't do all the things by myself. There were so many talented and gifted people in our team, in our government, and also within other parties. We had a government that held 5 parties, so we had a coalition government of 5 parties. And we had really talented people that worked in their sector, in their ministries, and fulfilling the things that we agreed together. Well, of course, it's politics. It wasn't always so peachy. It was always also within 5-party government, endless negotiations, a lot of tough negotiations, disagreements, fighting, for example, in newspapers, in public, because you have different ideologies and you have different views on issues, so it wasn't always that peachy. But in the end, we were effective, we did what we promised, and then I hope these things will also be fulfilled in the future, because many of those things that we agreed are some things that don't happen within 100 days or 4 years, but need a decade to do that. In Finland, I'm very proud that we have a culture where we also discuss with opposition. For example, when it comes to very important and necessary decisions concerning foreign and security policy, going into NATO, or even agreeing on general principles of Finnish foreign and security policy, we always discuss with all the parties, also with opposition. So we gather everybody together. When we discuss the climate laws or important matters, for example, in raising our R&D funding up to 4% until 2030. We want to raise our R&D funding up to 4% end of this decade. We discussed with the opposition. So I think when it comes to those long-term targets, it's very important that you get as much people on board as possible and also engage those that might disagree with you.
So one last question to Kasia. I know that the title of our debate is general leadership, but I want to ask about women. We have 3 women here on the stage, which is a good result. Yeah, big round of applause. But during our last local elections, only 20% of candidates fighting for being mayors or presidents of our Polish cities were women. I'm not asking about politics, but in general, how to inspire women to become leaders?
Well, I think it's a good and it's a tough question, and it goes a little bit along the same line as we were talking about young politicians and how to inspire people to actually pick up and go, pick up certain issues and develop. I think it does start, I think, from a woman and from my personal experience as well in life. It definitely starts with a passion and with finding your place, finding the right place to be in, yes, to something that really motivates. But there's a lot of things that need to be done. And in my particular case, I was very lucky. I had a lot of support at work at home. It doesn't often happen this way. So it is a challenge, and it is about creating an environment that actually allows for understands the challenges that women face. Just because, life is life, yes, there are different stages in life, understanding that, meeting those needs, and allowing them to grow, mentoring them to grow. And I think that, going back to what you just said, role models are very, very important. And I also changed my approach when I was younger. I kind of felt like, you know what, you just go, you work, and you're going to succeed, yes? You just do it. And I think now I am really thinking about, how to create an environment. We obviously do a lot also at Warner Bros. To create an environment that will be friendly, that will be supportive, that will be mentoring and allowing women to grow in the way they need to be supported.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for everything. What a wonderful group of our guests on the stage. Thank you so much. Great pleasure.
Thank you.
Sanna Marin, Francine, Katsoudas, Kasia, Kieli, Barnett. It was a great pleasure and honor to have you here.